So we in the Tucson area are in the Sonora Desert, the traditional homelands of the Tohono O'odham people and many other indigenous groups. We are fortunate to have a number of places named after herps in the O'odham language. I work on Tumamak Hill, which is a transliteration of Chemamak Do'og, which is Hill of the Horned Lizard. And across the valley, in the Catalinas, we have Baba Do'og, or Frog Mountain. The west face of Push Peak looks like a giant toad. So this is the most recent issue of Sonora Herpetologist. Got a beautiful black-tailed rattlesnake on the cover. We are very proud of the Sonora Herpetologist, and we hope that you like it. And if you'd like to receive it in your inbox, let us know. So the first Herp Association of the state of Sonora is organizing their first meeting in May, and we will have a group of at least 4 or 5 of us that will be at that meeting and presenting as fellows across the border. If you're interested in joining or wanting to help, let us know. 21 through 23 May. Here are a couple of events that we would love help on if you're interested. We are looking for folks to staff a table of herps for the Southern Arizona Regional Science and Engineering Fair. And if you're also interested in judging online projects that have to do with herps or herp adjacent projects, I won a scholarship in my sophomore year from SARSA for a project that I did with herps on snakes. It's a wonderful organization. Then we have the Tucson Festival of Books, the 14th through the 15th of March. It's a very large event where we reach a lot of people. A lot of children come to see snakes and turtles and Gila monsters. It's a really nice event that the Tucson community puts on. And then August is the Southwestern Partners in Amphibian and Reptile Conservation in Utah. So we will probably have a table there as well. 29 July through August 1st is the 50th International Herpetological Symposium in Rodeo, New Mexico. I couldn't find any higher quality logos for that, so I apologize. And then the 3rd through the 4th of October is the Tucson Reptile and Amphibian Show and Sale. Volunteers are needed for a restoration project. If you're interested, so you can scan that QR code and or contact Becca Kozat at Amphibian and Reptile Conservation. The companion volumes to Snakes of Arizona are in the process of being written. And if you are interested in helping with photographs or observations or anything like that, you can go to this website and contact the folks there. We have at least one of the editors here in the audience as well. Our meetings are recorded and uploaded to YouTube, and yeah, this one is also being recorded. So here's our lineup of speakers. We have August and September open. If you know anybody that would be, or you yourself are interested in speaking, let us know. But we've got a good lineup this year, including Tom Weaver tonight, who sort of needs no introduction. Tom is the current curator of herpetology, ichthyology, and invertebrate zoology at the world famous Arizona-Sonora Desert Museum. He's been a supporter of the THS and been on our field trip to find the Ditmar's horned lizard in Sonora, one of the rarest, if not the rarest, lizard in North America. And we're happy to have him in in our community and here at the meeting tonight. So welcome. Yeah, it's the one that was on the speaker forum.
Okay. And I was going
Through email.
Okay.
To which address?
All right, well,
Okay. See what the chat is saying.
I still have close with the idea on. Oh, and I have.
Well, have the drive.
What happened?
Let's just check. Hold on with us for a second. We're gonna try and get an updated.
I resubmitted it
to the on the. Yeah, that should be it then.
Well, I sent that.
I didn't see it. It was only because if you had, there would have been 8 responses rather. So.
Well, I can.
And to move between slides, just use the arrows here. Here we go.
All right. Well, thank you. Thanks for coming tonight, guys. My name is Tom Weaver. I moved down here about 3 years ago. I've been a curator of herpetology, ichthyology, and invertebrate zoology at the Desert Museum. Majority of my career was spent at the Denver Zoo for about 23 years. I worked at the Tampa Zoo, which is now Zoo Tampa, which is kind of cool, for about 5 years. And then I started at a small zoo in my hometown in Grand Island, Nebraska, and interned at Reptile Gardens. Perhaps see if you guys have been there, but that's like the wild west of reptiles. They at that point they had the largest collection of reptiles. So that was a fun time. But since I've been here, I've kind of shifted my not my passion, but my interest with. A lot of my career focuses on amphibians and conservation with amphibians. Since I've been here, we do work with some amphibians at the museum, but I kind of had to take a back seat, and now most of my stuff is rattlesnakes, stuff like that, which is a good trade-off. So with this program, this is I revised it today. It's going to be a little different, but that's okay. I wanted to start out, a big part of what I do with these presentations. I'm showing you a perspective from a zoo, an AZA accredited zoo. So when we look through this, you'll see the badge of American Zoological Association. This is different from other places where you would see AZA is basically, we just went through our inspection in December, and it's basically a higher elevation of standards for zoological facilities. And we have to go through everything from finances to rodent control to our gift shop to our animal welfare program and everything like that. And it's every 5 years we get inspected. And if you lose your accreditation, you're kind of screwed because a lot of what we do in AZA is we deal with other AZA institutions. It's easier for us to be able to move animals and everything without having to go through a lot of site inspections and to check out with see where we get our animals from. So one thing I wanted to talk about is the evolution of zoos a little bit. I'm going to make a little shift here. This is an older exhibit. You guys know what this is. We've got some Denver Zoo people here. Older cages, bars, concrete, brick. This zoo is the oldest zoo in the western part of the United States. I think Denver Zoo is probably 140 years old now. But you get exhibits like this where I think at one point they had polar bears in here. And then I heard the story that they had a seal that they put in the boat down there. And it didn't work out very good for the seals. And then over here, these are monkey cages. These have all been destroyed, but these are your typical typical caging system for animals. And about probably 15 years ago, we built an exhibit that was a $50 million exhibit where the exhibitry is more immersive. So you have public going through, you have 3 islands here, you have gibbons that come out here and they'll climb over and you can see them climbing over you and stuff. So it's more inclusive to the public to be able to get that close. You can see those guys sitting up there. More naturalistic setting rather than bars and cages. This looks like a big wide open spot for a lion sitting up there. But you can see right there, there's hot wire going across the bottom. So a lot of times when we work on new, I guess my biggest point is the zoos are evolving. We're getting away from what we used to be 50 to 100 years ago, where we were just collections of animals that kept them in bars and concrete cages. A lot of people would look at this and go, is this for the animals or is this for the human eye? I think it's a little bit of both. But it's something to where zoos have transitioned. For a long time, zoos claimed that we bred endangered species, rare, unique species. And that was our thing. That was our niche, was that we took care of the endangered animals. And about, probably 30 years ago, that shifted to where we really have to do what we're saying. And I saw it firsthand with amphibians, because amphibians are in a major decline right now. So a lot of zoos started focusing towards working with saving amphibians. Just to continue to do this out, this is a big bridge we put over. Our elephant exhibit was totally non-contact. And we got rid of the anchuses, and the animals did pretty much what they want. We had hydraulic systems. We had a bridge for them to crawl over there. I think all of them except for one, Groucho, was a big male that had never worked, had never been out without his keeper right next to him. So that kind of changed behavior. So it's kind of neat to see that. And then we had a big pool where elephants can swim. If you've ever seen elephants swim, it's pretty cool. About 1 million gallons of water, and filtration didn't work very good for the first 5 years. So along with that evolution, you're looking at what does zoo conservation mean? And it's a term that I've been using for quite a while now. Zoo conservation is kind of a different perspective from how different zoological institutions apply conservation. It might be all-encompassing throughout the entire zoo. It might be, I don't like to call it, but it's like a parasite department that the zoo goes, okay, we need to do something with conservation. Let's hire some people and give them this office, and we can say that they're actually doing conservation. It might be where you don't do any conservation, but you support it financially. My first zoo, Tampa, was the same way with that, where I was like, I wanted to get out in the field and work with animals. They're like, you don't really do that as a zookeeper. And then you go to places like San Diego, where the entire, and Phoenix too, the entire conservation department is its own entity. So like, San Diego is working with a lot of cyclura from the ground iguanas from the Caribbean. And, zookeepers don't even take care of those. It's all the conservation department. So there's a lot of different ways you can do it. This is interesting, this worked for quite a while. When I started at the Denver Zoo, I really, really wanted to go down and work with Panamanian Golden Frog. And I thought there's no way I could ever get funding or support to do that. And the first year I started, I asked and I got it. So I started going down to Panama in about 2000. But if you look here, we did nodes throughout the world. So we have, I think, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Mongolia, Vietnam, Kenya, Botswana, Peru, and the Rocky Mountain West. These are what you would consider an established program in those areas with an infrastructure and resources. So what this model was to try and piggyback off that and start to work on different projects that in the area. So like I started the project in Peru with a frog species. Now they're working with a couple different bird species. They're working with vicuña. So it's kind of neat to watch, see how this goes. I think, Vern, what did you go survey? Vipers in Mongolia?
Rocky Mountain West, Mongolia, were the two that I worked on.
but the whole perspective was I mean, everybody in the zoo got some sort of conservation effort. They got their hands wet with it. So it was kind of neat because everybody was on the same page with that. And then when I came here to the museum, I already had 10 conservation projects that were already established. So it was one thing where I had to work very hard at Denver Zoo to get some of these projects. Our boreal toad, which I'll show you, took 12 years to get it going. And you know, here at the museum was like, here you go. Here's you know, the Anaxyrus project, the rattlesnake, the New Mexico's original rattlesnake project. Here's the Tarahumara leopard frog project, and then not to mention multiple fish projects. We have about 10. So it's kind of cool to start with that. This is kind of a grouping of different things that I've done as far as showing them to people. Here's the global amphibian crisis. This is all the way back to 2020 or 2006, 20 years ago. This was a project that we worked on with basically the Panamanian Golden Frog. If you guys have heard of the global amphibian crisis, right now we're looking at, and this is old news, so it's kind of continue on from here. We're looking at an entire class of animals that are almost going in major decline or just are going extinct. There's a lot of different reasons for that. The biggest one is probably what we call a chytrid fungus. It's a fungus that's popping up all over the world that gets on the skin of frogs. And what it does, frogs and amphibians are like canaries in the coal mine, where they're like sponges of the environment. So anything changes in the environment, you're going to see populations fluctuate. And what is happening is they get that fungus on them, and it will kill them. It will. They go into like a catatonic state. They will do some excessive shedding, and then they will just die. They'll have a heart attack and die. There's treatment for them. We can treat them with itraconazole, which I'll show you here in a little bit. But how do you treat the wild? There's some amphibians that coexist with it. We have seen with our boreal toad project, we've seen certain populations that are living with it, but for like pretty much all the sites in Colorado for boreal toads are positive. And you know, with the facility I'm going to show you a little bit of, you know, what do? Do we take the ones that there's 3 populations that are coexisting with it and doing fine? Let's take animals from that population, start selectively breeding those, and kind of push evolution forward. Is that the right way to go about it? And a lot of stuff I'm going to say this is how it was done, not necessarily the right way or that it worked. We're still in a you know, time where we're looking at you know, is the stuff that the efforts that we're doing is trying to work. Same number exploited stream. We'll just kind of go through some of these. Okay, collaboration. Another good thing that we've had done. 2008 was the year of the frog, which AZA doesn't do that anymore. But we collaborated with the Amphibian Arc. Amphibian Arc is a IUCN initiative. They are the people that, if you are somebody in a third world country that knows if you have a frog that you want to work with or an amphibian, you can contact them. They'll help you find other people that are working with it. They'll help you find funding. They'll help you look at grants. It's a support group that AZA really kind of clung on to. And through a lot of these projects that I'm going to show you, they really did help out. This was kind of spawned from the Golden Frog project. I was in the field with Kevin Zippel, who he started talking about this. I was like, that's interesting. And then, you know, a few years later, it started up. Calls for action. This is one of the most important ones. Zoos and aquariums around the world have already accomplished some great work with amphibian conservation, but the time for status quo is behind us. We must change our view and approach the amphibian conservation now. We are no longer talking about the amphibian population decline. We are speaking of amphibian species extinction crisis. 43% of amphibian species are experiencing decline, 32% are globally threatened, and then about 120 species are possibly extinct at least one family with unique reproductive mode has been lost. This is also outdated. It's probably about 10 years old, so I'm sure it's more. We are on the verge of losing a huge part of our entire vertebrate class. One more species than mammals that are currently consuming the lion's share of our resources. The epiphany comes with a charge. Any organization that considers conservation as a core goal must take immediate measures for significant action. Our response must be proportionate to the crisis, lest we regulate ourselves to mere entertainment venues with no facade of conservation. As our critics have long accused, not only are we uniquely qualified for the task, but the rest of conservation and the scientific community is expecting us to respond. So that's where I was saying, we talk the talk, let's actually show some response to what we're doing. So I got involved with Proyecto Rana Dorado, or the golden frog. The golden frog is a harlequin toad frog. It's the layman's term. So harlequin frogs are found throughout Central and on into South America. They're almost like a poison dart frog. They're a little bit lengthier, and we'll see some of them. But they have a different breeding strategy. They're stream breeders. And the one thing about the golden frog is it's a very charismatic animal for the Panamanians. So that was a big reason why we chose that to be part of the project. But this project had about 18 species that we were actually trying to save. This is a good picture of a golden frog, big female there on the bottom. If you look, I don't know if you can see it. She's kind of white. There's eggs. I can tell that she's gravid. And then the male is in a plexus with her. So what he'll do is he'll hang on to her, and she'll hop around, kind of like a cloud force waterfall, and she'll go underneath, and she'll lay her eggs underneath that. It's well oxygenated, and there's no light. They're very sensitive to light. She'll lay a string of eggs. Those eggs will eventually hatch out, and then the tadpoles cling to these rocks, and they're a very specific diatom algae feeder, which if you try to culture that and try to feed them that in captivity, it's very, very difficult. Luckily, I worked in an aquarium, so I could scrape algae off all the tanks in the building, which didn't work either. But if you walk around, in their habitat, they're very variable. You'll see different colors. This one right here is one of my favorite, the polka dot. You'll see ones that are almost totally black. Now, not all of them are pure golden frogs. There's an Atelopus varius and there's an Atelopus zeteki in the same regions that kind of coexist with each other. How they stay away from hybridizing, I do not know. Brief history of PGF started in '97. Basically got up to about 2003 when we brought our first animals into the country. Now it's probably at 70 zoos. Every zoo now has probably reproduced them. So I would like to say there's probably more golden frogs in the United States than there is in the origin of Panama. Some of the stuff I'm going to show here, this is grassroots. This is where we started. This is actually in a hotel. So we have pigs set up, obviously, localities of all the animals where we collected them. When you're doing an assurance population, and I say assurance, not insurance population, what you're doing is you're collecting potential founders. You're collecting animals, specific locality from a specific area. You bring those into human care. If they reproduce or they're proven, then that becomes a true founder. And those offspring are to go back into the wild to the exact spot of where they were found. A lot of different perspectives on this type of mentality of trying to put this animal back into the wild. When you get into like with the boreal toads and stuff like that, it's thousands and thousands and thousands of tadpoles. You're just pounding the environment with those babies. Hopefully some of them survive. These are more to the point of, since they don't produce that many offspring, we've done some release sites down there in Panama. Haven't seen a lot of success. There are still golden frogs in the wild. We just, the big question is, are they coming back from being infected with the fungus, or are they the last of the group? Status at 28 institutions. Sorry, I didn't mean to have, I was going to get rid of all this text here. My other one. So the forest, it's a Central American cloud forest, about 6,000 feet in elevation, 2,000 meters, very dense primary forest. A lot of what you would do in, like with our surveys, you would find a river, stream, whatever that goes up the mountain, and then you just hike it. You go up it, and you go down it, and you just basically look for frogs and keep out of the way of furred lance, bushmasters, eyelash vipers. I didn't get to see bushmasters, so that's pretty upsetting.
This is kind of a dumb question, but what's their level of, I guess, adaptability to disturbed forest?
Not very good, and
Because I see there's some clear cutting on.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's, you know, to be honest with you, I don't know if that's actually an elko pay, so that's probably safe. There's a really cool polka dot green and black arrow frog. If you destroy this is basically what happened was golden frogs are found throughout the canal, all the way across the country, and what they're doing is they're building houses. And they're chopping the forest down, which disturbs the river at the top, which makes it, you know, all that silt comes down the river. They cannot reproduce. And the company that was building a lot of those houses was like, we want to help, we want to save it. It's like, how do you have that conversation? It's like, stop what you're doing. But they did help fund part of the project that we didn't do. It's one of those things where you have to explain to them, if you destroy the river, you destroy everything. And that's another thing with this frog species being as charismatic as it is. It was something that we could hopefully really connect with people. Like this perfect example. This is a little shrine to golden frog. They have it on a lot. It's like their bald eagle. They have it on their money. They have it on their lottery tickets. This is a market in El Valle, which is kind of like Golden Frog Central. They used to sell golden frogs in this market. So a lot of the hotels in the 1940s, El Valle was a very cool place to go up into the mountains of Panama. The El Valle is an area where they have a sleeping princess there, and the legend behind it was the princess wanted to marry outside of her tribe, so she went to the top of the mountain, and the gods the tribes would not allow it. So she committed suicide and laid on the top of the mountain, and he stayed there with her to protect her. And God made him into the golden frog. So when you see golden frogs, they're all around the sleeping princess, which is kind of cool. Yeah. But the hotels they have them, and what they do is they grab a bunch or buy them, throw them in some sort of containment, and they throw fruit. Fruit to feed them, but food that would attract fruit flies, and that's how they feed them. They would basically perish and not do well, and they go get more. So this is what we're kind of starting with that. As of course, I brought a ton of that stuff home over the years. Primary rainforest, cloud forest, I guess. Like I was saying, you walk up these rivers, and you'll see golden frogs. You'll see all kinds of stuff throughout there, but it's a lot of very slow. If you shift your weight at the top of the river, you will be all the way down to the bottom of the river. I wore cleats. I'm a bigger guy, so it was kind of like if I did this, I would be the funny story. I was rookie, first trip on a field trip like this. I went and got a Midwest like $90 snake hook. I show up and they're all like, "What do you got there?" I'm like, "It's my snake hook or my snake tongs." They're like, "Okay." And within probably 15 minutes, the first trail I shoved in a rock and broke it in half. Anthony Wininski used to be at the Baltimore program. He gave me a big stick. He goes, "Here's your snake hook." So this is not a very good picture, but I just wanted to show the yellow leaves there, and then the yellow frog. So you know, when you're herping, you get your search image. You're kind of going across the horizon. It's very difficult because there's yellow leaves everywhere. And if you see a golden frog, you can just go right up to it, pick it up. They'll hop maybe once or twice, but that's about it. Another aspect of the terrain. Not real hot, very cool. This one was a good story. We were actually trying to get to a spot to go survey a river, and we got 2 flat tires that day. And we met this guy. He goes, "Come to my place. Come over to my property." He goes, "I have frogs too." And we're like, "Well, that's kind of interesting." We didn't know what he had or where he was, so we went ahead and went over there that day. And another thing is when you collect frogs, you'll put them in airtight bags like that, and you'll hook onto them and get them back. You're not going very far. I mean, it's a big hike out, but it is only in those bags for a little while. But at this other guy's property, you have this frog, which this is the Atelopus varius. Ended up being same thing, male and the female, and she's grabbing its legs. So she's doing the same thing where she's going looking for a place to go under the rocks and lay her eggs. You can see how big she is. And they're about 3.5, 4 feet.
Do they have paratoid glands? Oh, actually, answered my question.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then we go a little bit farther over, and you'll see in the evenings or night when it's dark, you'll see big females sitting on leaves, and I can kind of tell how big she is, how big her belly is, and it's called cleavage. When you're trying to sex between male and female, females are usually going to be bigger, and this is a general, for a lot of frogs, and they have an indentation going down. Males are a little bit thinner, probably a little bit smaller. So this it's actually happened as when I was down there. I want to say it was probably 2002 or 3. Chytrid came through. What we were looking at was a wave. Chytrid was going through Central America. In 1986, Chytrid hit Bufo Parangus, which was the golden toad of Costa Rica. That was the last sighting of that toad. We probably could have got that animal into human care, and we probably didn't have it still, but that animal went extinct, and that was kind of the alarm for everybody. I sometimes wonder if there's golden toads in Europe somewhere where people still have them. But what happened was it started going down like a wave-like pattern, and then it hit in Panama about the year 2000. That's basically. And what happens, I'm going to go ahead and show you a lot of different species that I saw on these trips. I did trips from 2000 to about 2007, once or twice a year. And going out in the field, you'll see green and black arrow frog. This is an Elcope, where I said they kind of have the polka dots going on them. This one is a really cool one. This was called a Dendrobates ascenti. This is an endemic. I think they changed it over to Ophaga, which is, the strawberry dart frog related to it. And then the fun thing about this is, if you're not careful and you're not paying attention, you may end up with this on your forehead. If you look, you can see little tablets. So this is a leaf with a egg mass sitting on a leaf. This is going over the river. So when it rains, these guys are almost ready to go hatch out basically the water, and they'll disperse throughout the river. When I saw that, I was like all excited to see it, and then I realized they're kind of everywhere. But one of my friends was like, Kevin, he's like, see what color they are. And I go, they're dark. And he's like, well, they aren't glass frogs, because apparently glass frogs are clear or even white. Bolito glottis, this is a palm salamander, very cool little palm salamander that lives basically in amongst bromeliads. Given my snake hook that I broke, we would bring a rake or a hoe and cut the end off, so you have a hook on the end, but you have a long stick, and you can go up with some of those elephant ear plants and pull them down. You'll find these guys on the other end. Really cool. They got little webbed feet. I think they're pretty toxic. I think you can pick them up, but I think if you swallow one, you'd probably die. Glass frog, which is my absolute favorite. This is the Fleshman's glass frog, Hylonobittrachium fleshmani. I hiked, throughout the evening, got down by the river. These guys, you'll see very small streams with plants that grow over it. And if you turn the leaves over, you'll see an egg mass. You'll see a little male sitting up there fighting, eating or protecting his nest or his egg mass. And then this is a Gastrotheca cornuta. So this is a marsupial frog. These guys have pouches in their back, and what they will do is males will go into amplex with them. She'll push her eggs out of her cloaca and help fertilize them, push them up into her pouch. And then when they become tadpoles, she'll hop around and disperse the tadpoles individually like that. I had a different species at Denver that we bred, and I put in a bunch of water bowls in the tank with it. Sure enough, she dropped tadpoles in every other water bowl. Islets glass frog, ghost glass frog. Again, these guys are about 2.5 inches. You can see their heartbeat through their skin. This is a Phylomedusa lemur, a lemur tree frog. These guys are, they'll lay eggs on a leaf and fold it and create kind of a foam nest inside of a leaf. These are cool. These are Colistethus prodi. These are a poison dart frog. Not real colorful, but if you ever listen to South American or Latin American rainforest sounds, you'll hear that chirp that goes on. That's this species. But if you get a good look at them, full of tadpoles. Mm-hmm. So what they're doing, I mean, you'll be walking, you'll be like, oh, there's one. Man, you'll count the tadpoles on the back, and he'll go around, and both parents, I think, do it. They'll drop them off in different water sources.
Do they just latch on with their mouth parts to the back?
They're just sticky.
Okay.
Yeah. I've watched them do it. There's these guys just drop them in the water, but like when you get into strawberry dart frogs or some of the thumbnail species, they're considered obligate egg feeders or facultative egg feeders. So what they need is they live and coexist around bromeliads, and they'll lay an egg mass, and the eggs will hatch out the tadpoles. Mom or dad will take the babies and drop them into a bromeliad axil, and they'll stay there. And mom will go up and feed dummy eggs to all the bromeliads to feed her babies. That's usually when you see that. And another ghost glass frog, my favorite. This one is a Kroger. I don't know what this. I can't remember.
Crowgaster?
Yeah. Leaf litter frog. And then the glorious Atelopus spinosa. These guys are really cool. These are big tree frogs. They're cavity nesters. So, like in a tree, if it's got water down in it, a pair will pair up in there. Males get these big spikes on their head during the breeding. And then the Hemiphractus fasciata. This is a cascaded frog. These are really cool. Big tooth underneath there. They're frog eaters. So bringing that animal into an isolated quarantine facility and then having to go collect frogs to feed it caused a problem. We'd have to treat all the food that we got. The thing you got to realize is this area has chytrid in it. These animals probably are positive for chytrid. So if you're building a facility or a lab in the middle of that, you step right out of it, you could potentially, basically biosecure facility to be able to keep it from spreading. Unfortunately, that same year, these are some of my friends' pictures. This is what you see when chytrid lice comes through. That's actually a dead frog. You'll basically see frogs falling out of trees. It wipes everybody out. Pretty depressing to go through. So at this point, we had the ARCC, which was with Atlanta Botanical Gardens, Ron Gagliardo, who started that down there, and then Robert Hill took over with that, and we decided to pull out at least, I think it was 16 species to get them into a assurance populations. LVA Amphibian Conservation Center. This was, and I'm going to give you some of the strategy behind this. This is building, so this is the United States, zoos from the United States giving funding to people, private entities in Panama to help build a facility to work for assurance population. The big concerns is where is it going to be? Is it going to be on government land? Is it something the government can take over and turn into an office in 5 years? We did this on a private zoo, and we all worked together and got this place built. And then this is the species that I was talking about, pretty much all the ones I was given. These are the species we worked with to get into the facility. This is the start of the facility. This was a hotel. The local cartel let us have a couple of rooms because it was off season. So we started collecting specimens, and all these specimens are in different containers waiting to go into our newly built facility. So this is Agardo. Every day we had to do this. This was diluted bleach in here, so we had to disinfect every prop, everything going in there. It was a whole day thing. And you get up and you start doing this, get everybody cleaned. Every other day is clean day. Every other day was a feed day. And then you go out at night looking for animals or looking for insects. Further down the project, I asked my boss, I go, you think I could smuggle fruit flies down there? He goes, no. He goes, do not do that. He goes, you could lose the whole project with that. He goes, if you went down there and you got busted with that, he goes, they could pull everything. Which I thought is so easy. Just take a vial of fruit flies down there. But we ended up sending insect people down there that were taking native species. What I was doing, I was working with the glass frog in Costa Rica, and you cut up fruit, you put it in a bucket, just let it sit all day without in the sun, and then you take a bag over the top of it, you hit it, and all these fruit flies will fly up into the bag, and then you can take those and feed them out. We had fans with nets on the end of them with big lights. You guys probably seen those, or the bugs are attracted to that, they shoot into that. But that's a lot. But you got to feed out, I mean, I don't know. By the time we got that put in, there was 600 frogs in there. So it was like it's always with like poison dart frogs, or even with the hobbyists. They're not that hard to take care of, but you have to have food. And if you're not making your fruit fly culture or being on top of it, or if you're lazy, you're going to have 2 weeks where you're not going to have food. So it's all about food prep with a lot of amphibians. To be a good amphibian keeper, I think Aquaiums probably do a better job with being true amphibian keepers, but you have to be a botanist, you have to be a insect person, and you have to know your different kinds of supplements and everything like that, because you can have problems with amphibians being the sponges that they are. If the first thing I've read was tomato frogs, and I raised them on RO water, and they all morphed out with 3 legs. So RO being reverse osmosis water, very, very clean. I thought I was being really sterile, and I depleted them. So that RO water depleted the tadpoles and sucked stuff out of them. So when they went to morph out, they didn't have enough energy. That was very disappointing for my first success reality. So chytrid, here's itraconazole. So chytrid can be treated. It's I don't know what the routine now is, but it's like a 7 days of 10-minute soak at whatever the solution is. And you basically go ahead and put them in there and treat them with that. But the thing about that, you can't really do that to the wild. When I was at the Denver Zoo, we had chytrid come through our collection twice, and it was a nightmare. It was pretty much, I saw a blue poison dart frog that was shedding skin. He was just sitting there. I was like, we should probably swab him. Sure enough, we had it. And at Denver, we had 112 exhibits of, reptile and amphibian and fish exhibits. Had to go through, take out every piece of plant, anything organic, take it out, destroy it, disinfect, treat everything, treat, I don't know, thousands of frogs. Got it through it, and then buy new stuff for everything, get it all set up. That takes, I don't know, 6 months to 8 months to get there. And then 3 years later, we got another positive. So we had to do it again. And I was talking with Alan Pessier, he's a histopathologist at San Diego. And I told him that story, and he goes, yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if we find it again. And I was like, well, what does that mean? He's like, a lot of collectors probably have it sitting dormant as something, or the species have coexisted with it, or the specimens coexist with it and do fine with it. Unless you get them to a point where they become compromised, then it's going to pop up. I had a pair of green and black arrow frogs at home that I had for 10 years. Every 2-3 weeks, I get babies out of them. I donated some of my babies to the zoo. Embarrassing story. Positive for chytrid. And I was like, my entire collection at home's got chytrid. I guarantee it does. Everything was doing fine. So I started treating all my animals at home, and it gets to a point where it's kind of like either they're going to coexist with it or they're not. I'm hoping someday you can go to a pet shop and buy chytrid away soap for your frog. I don't know if they'll ever get there, but
it probably sits in plastic, abraded plastic.
Well, if I walked through, everybody thought I brought it from here with my boots, because I was wearing the same boots. But if I got mud on my boots and left it on the ground for a while and it did completely dry out, you can probably transfer chytrid that way. And think of this though, in the early 80s, all those researchers were figuring it out. They were taking their trucks here, they were taking their trucks here, they were hiking through, they weren't disinfecting their equipment. A lot of that spread probably happens. But to end that, or to tell you about that story, so it was going through like a wave that ended up, now it's pretty much popped up all over the world. If you go to Ecuador out in the field, they don't even treat for chytrid between sites because they know it's everywhere. I have a friend in Costa Rica that had chytrid come through his property, and he's a glass frog guy down there in 86, and he has gotten every species except for their Harlequinta, but every species has kind of come back. Chytrid probably has been here before humans. Chytrid is probably something these animals have already coexisted with or not. The theory behind it is Africa or Asian species, like African cloud frog, guaranteed every one of those probably has chytrid on it. Those were brought over for hospitals to use for pregnancy. And what they did is they would take the hormone test, and the frogs would spawn. That would mean the woman was pregnant. After the technology got here, they just let it go. Those are probably chytrid positive animals that got out. Your little bullfrog experiment at the elementary school where you got to raise a tadpole and let it go. That's probably, not to mention you're introduced to a bullfrog, which is the most horrendous frog in the world as far as being introduced. Not only are they probably eating the native species, they're also giving them chytrid. And some species coexist. We did a study on I can't remember what. It was a leptodactyls. Remember those leptodactyls, the desert ones we had from Bolivia?
The big
leopard
pattern things.
They found that they coexist with the fungus because during breeding season they'll develop a peptide that fights chytrid, and they'll be able to keep it off, and then in the off season they're more susceptible to it. Oh, sorry. So El Valle, this is the beginning of El Valle. We built it right there in the middle of the rainforest. Brought down tons of glass, had to cut. I cut the crap out of my hands building all those tanks. Got them together. So a lot of different people from different zoos came down to help with this. We got the facility out. Facility lasted for a good, 5 or 6 years. When you're dealing with bureaucracy and politics, they had to leave this facility and they built a new facility with Gardo and Heidi So there's a new, it's called LVA 8.2 or EVAC Center 2.0. Switching on to another project like Titicaca project, at this point, we were like very much talking about how many zoos and everything were coming down to Panama and competing to be on that project. So we went ahead and moved on to a different frog, which is, I was very excited because it's in Peru, and I was going to get to go to the Amazon and do my thing in the Amazon, and ended up going to Lake Titicaca, which is about 13,000 feet in elevation and the highest lake in the world, and very cold, and there's no oxygen. We'll get through this kind of lake here. So this is the lake. This is the lake found on the border of Bolivia and Peru, right down the middle, about 12,500 feet in elevation. There are Achilles fish native to this lake. They have seen introduced rainbow trout and brown trout, which are affecting things. These are Amari people that live on the lake. This is the island they built out of Totoro reeds. Everything there is a Totoro reed. These people live on this lake. Most of their food comes from fish. They're fishermen. They go out and with their nets, and they'll throw out and bring in fish, and they will bring in frogs. So these frogs they will take to the markets. Right there's a good picture. That's probably a female. Big cut one, or male. Bring these frogs to the markets where, and this one's a picture of a picture. This is a Bolivian frog, huge frog. So I'm thinking there might be some more species taxonomy study going on there. But what they'll do is they'll sell them in the market, and this thing is called the Rani Maca. This is full of frogs. This is a little restaurant area. Rani Maca is frog shaped. So what they'll do is they'll grind the frog up in a blender, and they'll use a natural root called maca, which is from Peru, and they'll drink it. And it's for Peruvian Viagra, it's for mental clarity, it's for infertility, it's for your headache. Kind of like a lot of the Asian turtle crisis where they're eating up all their turtles. Here it's the same thing. Not enforced very well. It is illegal, and by no means is this the major threat to the species, but this is something that's going on. And the biggest part about it is they want wild frogs. So pretty much all those frogs in there are going to go into the blender. Another market area. So this was a confiscation that happened years ago. What they do is they have these boxes and they have divided out, and then they'll put a board on there and they'll put more frogs. I think this confiscation was around 4,000 frogs. Pretty much at that point, just by looking at that, I guarantee all those frogs are going to die. A completely aquatic frog that does use their lungs, but when you get to this point, we do get confiscations at the museum, and where I've worked. Unfortunately, a lot of the confiscations, sometimes you turn out really good. A lot of them are just rehab, just getting the animals to live through it. But look at the variety of colors. Those are big frogs too. And then they eat them. Consumption is a big thing. You'll find pretty much at all the restaurants they'll have frogs, whether they're like Titicaca or like that. So the fun thing about that was one of the guys that was on that confiscation worked for Stefana. There was 2 frogs that survived, and he put them in this apartment complex in a little fountain. And he called us and he goes, "You want these frogs?" So this was the start of our frog lab at a university in Lima. Parana Caetano is university that has one of the leading veterinary universities and medical schools in Lima. But they don't do wildlife stuff. It's all chickens and dogs and cats and cows, domesticated. Roberto, my friend that worked there, he's a professor there. He's the one that we started this with. So we went and bought some tanks, set them up, and we're going to figure out how to take care of them. University was like, "Here, have this room," and we're like, "Okay." And then we built it into a lab, brought in chillers, started work with them here. And then we partnered up with, there's a chiller that partnered up with Cayetano Zoo, which zoos in Central South America aren't necessarily working with conservation. So this was a project that we got involved with them, and they got to go out in the field with us. And that started kind of their whole thing on what conservation was. We're the experts, they're not. And then, sure we know, they bred them before we did it at the lab. So here's a baby, probably around 3 or 4 inches, a tadpole. Tadpoles are big tadpoles, and I've had tadpoles live over a year without metamorphing. But then you get little guys like this. So what we did was, after this happened there, I went down, but it took me 10 years to get these, to be able to bring them to the United States. I went down there, took 100 babies from them and sent them up here to the United States. Now you'll see, if you see any Lake Titicaca frogs at a zoo, it's probably, I know it's coming from this bloodline. And then we sent 150 over to London. So, and they're not, again, you know, a lot of amphibian stuff, it's all in taking care of the facilities for them. As long as you have them on a chiller, keep them 60 degrees or cooler, you'll get babies. You know, blackworms. Some of the younger ones we were seeing up near the shore, which I think they were coming up and using their lungs. There's the team. Then real quickly, I'm gonna get through skinfold. So yeah, you see this is very similar to like North American hellbender that has the folds on the sides, and they do that motion. These guys do push-ups. What they do is they're running oxygen across their skin, absorbing that oxygen, and that's how they breathe. Juveniles will see up closer to the shore and the rocks, which I think they're coming out and using their lungs. Males or adults are 20 feet down, so I know they're not coming up to get air every time. At the zoo, we had, I think, a chiller broke, went up to about 70 degrees. All the frogs came up when we were on their forepark on top, and the night keeper, it wasn't you, I think it was Sue. She was like, "Hey, your frogs are coming out of the water every night," and that's how we figured out that you know, higher temperatures means lesser dissolved oxygen, which doesn't allow them to get as much oxygen. There's a big thing about the skin. There's a big
wow.
This was a video. This was an older presentation. Then some of the other stuff, we'll get to this because we're at the end. Wyoming toad project, another AZA project. This toad is found probably the most endangered species in North America. Don't tell that to the mammal people. But these guys are only found in 2 ponds north of Laramie. Both ponds are high plains, very windy, gets very cold. I think the ponds were originally trout ponds for some fishing club. Both ponds are positive for chytrid. We've been breeding this species and putting it back into the wild for, I don't know if anybody is here on that project, you know, 15, 20 years. I think they said in the beginning, we're going to do this for a decade. And if we can't get it to hold, we're going to stop. And the reason for that is when you're dealing with AZA and our priorities with species, we have priority 1, priority 2 species, but it's kind of like, if this species is gone extinct, then there's not much we can do for it. Do we spend a lot of time and effort trying to save that one, or do we get the ones that are in line almost there? So nobody wants to make that decision. That's why I think this project is still going. But the one thing that's interesting about these guys is very, very sterile. If you look, there's no substrate. They basically keep them on plastic. I thought that was really interesting. But if you look there, these guys, I'm not a good with toads. You could put 5 toads in front of me and I probably wouldn't be able to decipher which ones they were. But these guys had a big crest on front of their head. Here's out in the field, high plains, very windy. As the parameters of the study had to be within the wind. If it was too windy, you couldn't do it. Basically, those 2 ponds, you had transects around them. If you found a toad, you'd stop, you'd do GPS on it, you'd put a kind of a barrier around it, study the vegetation, do readings and process it. You put a pit tag in it with super glue, Basically, you make a little incision, put the pit tag sub Q under it, and you super glue it and hold on to it. This is another zookeeper, Cindy Custom. Her husband was one of my keepers that was the other frog guy there. Here they are processing a Wyoming toad. There's your habitat. And yeah, I mean, the thing about keeping them, this is U.S. Fish and Wildlife Facility, very, very sterile. This was one of the first breeding facilities of this type. So one of the things that we have kind of learned through building these populations is, do we want to be sterile? Do we want to keep them, biosecurity quarantine? Obviously, we don't want Kitter to get back into the wild, but some of the perspective that we're looking at, if you have a wild frog that has natural parasites and coexisting with them, that's part of their process. That's part of their physiology. When you bring it, anything that's brought in from the wild, the parasite load is probably going to explode. So you have to be very careful about watching that. I was always very much like with our rattlesnake project. I didn't want to treat them at the beginning, and then we got big parasite loads and we had coccidian stuff that popped up. But the theory behind it is you don't want to bring an animal and breed it in multi-generations in captivity, and then clean it from all its parasites, keep it sterile, and then raise the baby and throw it into the water. It's probably not going to work. And we realized that we're probably creating very naive specimens to go back into the wild. So some of the perspectives that we're looking at now is bacteria. Bring soil substrate from where they're from. Let them, keep the parasites in them that they naturally have, but don't let them get too high. It's very difficult that way because telling a vet, your vet at the zoo that, I think I joke with them, but sometimes I think vets would rather have the frog be dead and clean of parasites than to have parasites that still be alive. And if you joke with them, they usually say, yeah, sometimes that's right. But I mean, there's certain things that happen. This summer was a big summer for mud turtles. We got a lot of confiscations of mud turtles coming through the border, and we had a big group of them. We tested them. They were negative for everything. We were going to spread them out to other institutions. And then one of them died, and we did a test on it and got coronavirus. Mm-hmm. And we're like, well, that changes everything. What do we do with these? As far as I know, you can't treat that at this point. But so what facility wants to do a lab for coronavirus? Nobody's going to want to do that. So those types of things pop up. Another good example was Moody Gardens Aquarium brought in some wild frogs from a dealer, quarantined them, did everything they could for them, put them on exhibit, got them in. They started seeing deaths happen. They got coronavirus, and before it was over, it was 250 animals died, and it was $16,000. So you can kind of imagine why vets think that way. And then on my other one, I had more pictures of this, but there's Wyoming toad in the wild. And then sometime I'll do a boreal toad talk. These are the western toad. This was another project we started at Denver Zoo. Very, very high mountain, above 7,000 feet elevation, endangered species, and that was the one I was saying. Majority of all their sites have chytrid positive, but this is a project that's taken off. And we ended up, this is what you guys can look at the corrados. So this was like built in the 1920s. It was a lion holding exhibit. And you shifted lions. These were enclosures. You shifted lions underneath. We all joked around that we thought that there was ghosts of zookeepers passed in there. That got bitten by lions. But they're like, hey, you want to breed them? Here, have this closet in the bottom of the building. And that's what it looked like. It was not very interesting. And then we ended up building about $35,000 facility at the zoo, brought in toads from Utah and brought in toads from Colorado. as far as I know now, that's been very successful. They've released toads in the wild. But the funny thing is, the story behind it was we had a building that we moved the vet hospital in because they're building a new hospital. I walked into the old building and I was like, how's the future boreal toad facility? They're like, what are you talking about? I was like, nothing. And then a couple of months later, I heard an intern saying, hey, isn't that the boreal toad breeding facility? And I was like, where'd you hear that? And he was like, I don't know, people are talking about it. Eventually, we got the facility and were able to put equipment in it and get going. So anyway, that's my talk. So thanks. If you guys have any questions?
I like this idea of figuring out how to coexist with the chytrid. It's not going anywhere,
Yeah.
and not just in captivity, but what are some habitat interventions? I know there's some little froggy hotels that
There's been a lot of different things, like when I was talking about Brian Kubicki, who wrote the book on glass frogs in Costa Rica. He firmly believes that they have to evolve with it.
Yeah.
They have to get it. They have to, pathogen and the host.
Yeah.
So is this adapt to it? Given the other threats that we're dealing with, which is primary loss of habitat, non-point pollution, kind of climate change, that's very dire for amphibians. To add a fungus that's going to kill all of them. But I think we're starting to see it in the private sector where chytrid is probably there and is probably coexisting. Given if you don't, I could keep frogs at 85 degrees to 90 degrees, probably never see it. If I cool it down to 60 degrees, you're going to see it pop up. You're going to see frogs start to act it out. But there's different types of chytrid. We have B-sal now, which is a salamander chytrid that's wiping out fire salamanders in Europe. We had, when they brought in the big Chinese salamander, came in with its own species of or strain of chytrid. I'm not, what would you call a fungus expert. There's probably 40 or 50 different strains of chytrid, not all lethal. The one story I know about the one that came from Africa or they think potentially Asia, got into bullfrogs. Bullfrogs are a very big farm food. So they spread those throughout all over the world for frog legs or whatever you eat frogs for. Those got out and combined with that chytrid and the wild chytrid created a lethal form of it. So that's the biggest thing is, if we weren't in the age of the humans, this would probably go through. We'd probably lose some species. Bullfrogs would probably take over the world and re-evolve into their own species.
When I wrote the paper or a paper on the Sonoran desert toad threats, it was really hard for me to mention captive breeding of amphibians because I knew that a lot of people who would read my article were people who would think that captive breeding is like a silver bullet, right? And it cannot obviously be very useful. It's very effective under specific parameters. And your talk kind of gave me a little bit more insight into the prevalence of chytrid and how they exist with it. And rhinovirus as well. I'm sure you know there's the monastery in Michoacan that breeds endangered ambystoma, the axolotls, Atelopus, in Lake Pátzcuaro. And this was they make a cough syrup out of it, and
that's the lake by Mexico City.
Yeah, it's northwest of Mexico City in the state of Michoacan, and the Spaniards saw that the indigenous people were harvesting these water dogs, these ajolotes. It was part of their diet, and it's something that just persisted. And for some reason, this monastery was making cough syrup out of ambistomas to support themselves, and ended up becoming a breeding facility for these endemic salamanders. And I couldn't help but think of that situation with the like Titicaca frog, as if it's being used as a traditional medicine or food, that's not necessarily a bad thing. How can they sort of modify their cultural identity to,
Yeah.
you know,
Well, I've seen cans of frog, like a product.
tin frog?
Yeah. But we did a survey with taxi drivers
Oh.
and asked them for all of our trips and everything, asked them, do you eat frog? Why do you eat it? And a lot of them did. Everybody did. It's not something that you would see Bolivians do.
Mhm.
It seems to be a Peruvian thing. I did get a call from a facility in Ecuador, Ambatu Center, and they got like Titicaca frogs there that were somehow made it. But I told them, they go, what do we do with them? I was like, there's no way we're going to be able to get them out of there or do anything with them. I go, I would just keep them. I go, keep them, don't eat them. And that's a joke. And they're like, we don't do that. That's Peruvian. Go ahead.
It kind of seems to me like when you're starting a captive assurance colony that you need to really have the purpose identified. So for instance, like with Panamanian Golden Frog, just keep the species alive versus like you mentioned before, if the purpose is, okay, we want to really chytrid resistant genetic stock, because that seems like a really different strategy to me, because I foresee the problem being that if you take a genetic resistant population and you start breeding it in captivity, but without chytrid, you kind of remove that genetic selective pressure. And so then you don't know that the animals that you're releasing back into the wild are going to be.
Yeah, I mean, selection is the biggest thing. It's like we did a lot of work with Madagascar fish. I mean, God, we had 50 generations. That's a domestic animal. It's not the same animal I took from the wild. First of all, the one I caught in the wild were the dumb ones. They got caught. So I've already selected for the dumb ones. Put them in a tank, feed them, let them go through like leopard geckos or what. I think domestication is 50 generations. Leopard geckos are probably domesticated. Ball pythons, I hope, are a domestic animal at this point. But you're not putting the same animal back into the wild. And, I kind of lean towards, well, put it out there, see what it does. If it survives, if it goes back into that. And I say that we had a bunch of Gulf sturgeons that were given to us at when I worked in Tampa. And they were at a lab, the University of Florida lab, and they were going to euthanize all of them. I was like, why do you euthanize them? They're like, they're genetically just, they're clones. I mean, they've been inbred. I go, give me 10 of them, and we'll see how they do. And we put them in an exhibit with manatees. Every single one went into the rocks and died. They got stuck in the rocks. They didn't know how to go into reverse. Oh. And that was kind of like, okay, that you don't want to do that.
No.
But when you're looking at populations that are coexisting with it, Wyoming, not Wyoming toads, but Boreal toads in Wyoming and Utah, there's populations that are doing very well that are positive. And then in other populations are getting wiped out. It's the same story like out of the museum. It's like, I don't want to have a tortoise at the museum and take it north of Tucson and let it go. Because, whatever that population that evolved with it and coexisted with it, I just pretty much potentially wiped out that population. That's why the whole tortoise adoption thing is so big. So people aren't just letting tortoises go that have runny noses, whatever.
Yeah, I think. Oh, sorry.
I was just gonna see what your thoughts are on like sending U.S. zookeepers to other countries to work on these passion projects and then going home, and like, have you seen more expansion of projects being like really headed by people directly from the community instead of.
Yeah, that's the important thing. That is the goal. My goal with any of these projects was to build infrastructure. I don't like to say third world, underdeveloped countries to where they don't have, because the Lake Titicaca Frog, big, huge. I mean, all the wealthy kids that I'm sure went to that university. There was no wildlife. You know, Roberto, my partner down there, he was the one that started teaching them all that stuff. But yeah, it's very much to try and build those infrastructure, and you got to pay. The El Valle or EVAC Center, good example. Houston Zoo put up a lot of money for that. They paid the staff. They supported everything. We got involved with it, started help with the designs for the new building. Houston Zoo was like, okay, we're going to give you 1 more year. We're going to give you all these tools. We're going to give you everything you need, and we're going to go our own way. And hopefully you'll survive. It doesn't work. It doesn't work. You have to have, if you want a facility and you want people to work at it, you have to be able to pay them, and you have to replicate their salary. Otherwise, you can't rely on volunteers. And that's the biggest thing I've seen with a lot of projects. You go over there, you do all your great stuff. You're in, the Tucson news, and everything's great, and then you walk away. Government comes in and takes that facility and makes it into an office. So it's a lot of that, and especially with like Roberto Elias, who we worked with in Peru. We helped build his he did it himself, but through this project, he is now on the IUCN. He's a professor at a university. He's teaching all these students how to be wildlife biologists and stuff. So it is a big thing where there's a lot of competition with projects. I remember Turks and Caicos with iguanas. Bern was down there. San Diego got involved, and then all of a sudden, before we realized that it was San Diego's project, but that's San Diego. But yeah, no, I mean, 2008, Year of the Frog, everybody, I think AZA told everybody to do something with amphibians, so everybody jumped on the Golden Frog project, and we were like, too much, too many people. When I'm in Denver and I bought all the equipment and got everything ready for this project, and then Cheyenne Mountain Zoo comes down and goes down there for one trip and says the biggest expedition in the world, made the Denver Post. My bosses were like, what's going on? They're getting all the credit for this. And I was like, this is how it goes. No harm or foul to them, but I bought the truck that they drove down there.
So Tom, maybe I missed something, but what's your assessment of the Golden Toad project? I mean, where does it stand right now?
Well, it's hard to say because it's all about habitat. Is there habitat left? I do know that the largest Latin American hydroelectrical plant was built there. I know that they, I remember, because I still sit on the committee and I still help fundraise for it. I remember they had done a frog release, and my main guy at Garda was not happy about it. I was like, what's going on? Why are you acting that way? And he's like, they let him go in a swamp. None of those survived. I was like, what are you talking about? He goes, it was oppressed. And they wanted to do it, and he almost got fired over it. But yeah, there's huge politics involved, and I think the biggest success I've had when I was at the Denver Zoo is we did our own thing.
Well,
we didn't hop onto other people's projects, so we didn't have to deal with politics.
I can't help but think of how much of this is cultural, and how much and this is not a criticism in any way, but essentially with these programs, we're imposing a specific culture or format of conservation from where we're coming from. And I think it's really important to think about how people in those countries perceive the value of animals and the environments, and sort of figure out how that ties into their cultural identity, and sort of push it in that direction, you know.
Yeah. It can be difficult. Try getting Bolivians and Peruvians to work together.
Yeah. Yeah.
That was very difficult. I noticed a lot of, oh, they're working on it too. Why aren't you collaborating?
Yeah.
Because we want you to be with us because you're the money.
Yeah.
And it becomes competition for resources. And that's what I noticed big with trying to get our team in Bolivia to work with the Peruvians. But that was it. I think it was competition for resources. Chytrid, testing for chytrid. I was shipping them here. We were sending them to Boulder, Pisces.
Samples?
Yeah. What was it? San Marcos University in Lima. They do chytrid testing. I'm like, why? And they're like, they don't know what they're doing. We don't want to use them.
Yeah.
We don't want them to get the credit. So
Tough stuff. Tough cookie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Any more questions? Well, thank you guys.
Yeah. Zoom, but I'm not sure.
You can answer it tomorrow's text, 8 o'clock.
Oh, so I don't have to text you, what time?
You don't have to.
All right, I'll see you at 8 o'clock. I'll probably be at R9.
Well, thank you all. We have some merchandise if you're interested, right guys in the back, but next month will be Taggart Butterfield, who works with turtles in Sonora, and I think he's going to talk about the endemic Sonoran slider, Trichemis yakia, and also the Rio Fuerte slider. So really cool turtles that we don't have almost any information on until he came along. So it'll be a very interesting topic.
Cool. Doing a presentation on predator sliders.
Yeah.
Well, drive safe.
Yeah.
I got